Thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective, the podcast with subject matter experts in marketing. Are you positioning your brand to be a technology company? I don't mean transforming whatever your core product or service is, but are you using technology and data to truly transform the value proposition and journey for your customers? Are you looking at your own tech stack and considering what pieces need to be built versus which ones need to be bought? Liora Simozar is a senior product manager at Clutter with subject matter expertise at product marketing within a startup. And on this episode, we'll discuss build versus buy on your tech stack, the value of clean data, attribution, and how companies can truly be considered technology companies. So let's tune in to a product manager with a product shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Liora, thank you so much for being on A Shark's Perspective today. If you would tell me a little bit about your background and your career thus far.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. I am a senior product manager on Clutter's growth and acquisition team. Clutter is a full-service moving and storage company, so we're really trying to turn the storage industry on its head. Instead of you going to a storage unit, we want to send our movers and our trucks to you to make your life a lot more convenient so you can focus on doing the things that you love.
Good. So what were you doing before?
Before that, I was a product manager at a company called Bidium, and before that, I was a product manager at a company called Cargomatic, which brands itself as the Uber for trucking. So I've been in a product role for most of my career.
So you also mentioned, when I heard you speak, that Google Ventures was behind part of this. Talk about sort of those relationships that have helped build Clutter into an emerging company.
Well, we're proud to be a Sequoia-backed company, and it's really great to have the brains on that team on our board and investing in us and believing in us.
Have you been able to leverage technologies from these different partners that's really helped you other than just the funding? I mean, have you seen anything that's really sort of helped connect those? Because I think a lot of startups would be really interested as well.
I mean, they're definitely value-add investors. They've helped introduce us to the right people to help us make better decisions. I know my team has benefited from introductions to consultants and experts who can help us with some of the questions that we have.
So what got you interested in product? Product's always something that not a lot of people dive in marketing. You know, so many people get it stuck in the creative and they'll get into email or everybody's getting into search or SEO. But what was it about product that got you excited?
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about the marketing side because I never thought I would really be in marketing. To quote one of my coworkers, I've been a product manager since I was 10. I've always really liked ideating on different things. And how could this tool be better? What would be a better version of the world? When I was 10 years old for like one of my school projects, I basically conceived of what is now the iPad. So I've always, and I think we all have in different ways, I always wanted my phone to take better pictures long before camera phones were really a thing. So I've always had that mindset, like, wouldn't it be cool if we smashed these things together? Wouldn't it be cool if someday this product could do this thing? Wouldn't it be cool if I had a smaller laptop that I could take with me everywhere? I always wanted one of those.
Well, there's a market out there for the Liora, so I mean, it's coming. So then let's talk a little bit about, as Clutter starts developing their tech stack, what are the things that you're looking at to help develop that out?
Yeah. So what really got me excited about Clutter was that when I joined, they had decided to shed a lot of the different tools they were using and just build a unified platform. So at the time they were using RingCentral and Salesforce for their CRM. And when I joined, there was this controversial decision that had just been made to build an integrated call center CRM and OMS, which stands for Order Management System, all in-house. And that got me super excited as a product person because at every company that I've worked for, Salesforce has been an issue for me. It's always been a kind of a black hole where all of our data goes, and it's made it really hard to really understand where our customers coming from, what are the characteristics that we, in theory, are storing about them somewhere, but I don't have access to it to see what kind of customers they become. So having a unified system where all of our data is housed in one place was a huge, huge appeal to me when I started joining Clutter. And we've kind of carried that mentality all the way through. So we'll use other products all the time, Invoca being one of them. We use Twilio and we use Stripe. But when we think about build versus buy, a big factor for that is, do we get to own our data? And sometimes we'll work with tools that keep it. For example, we use Full Story for a short while. But for the most part, if it's going to play an integral role in how we do our work, it's really important that we have access to our data and that we can integrate it with our other systems. So we ultimately choose to build our own A/B testing platform. We ultimately chose to build our own web tracking platform instead of relying on Google Analytics. Built our own landing page instead of relying entirely on Unbounce. And it's been a philosophy that's given us really, really granular insight into what's going on and has allowed us to bridge information from very disjoint parts of the customer lifecycle.
So, but that takes a lot of momentum from your senior marketing and IT leadership. I mean, with it being a storage company, you don't necessarily think of it as a technology company. But that's a pretty bold move because Salesforce is still a good product. There's a lot of good CRMs out there. I mean, I agree with your point. I'd do it proprietary any day of the week if I could. But that takes a real shift in leadership to help support that big of a build out.
At the end of the day, we are a technology company. We are a technology company in the storage and moving space, and we have a lot of characteristics in common with a software company, with a traditional storage company, but we really are focused on using that technology and leveraging it to build a better customer experience and to deliver, better costs, more efficiency, and a more consistent experience across the board. So I would ultimately say that we're a technology company. We operate in the storage and moving space, and we build technology that makes people who are looking for storage and moving have a better experience, whether it's delivering them better prices, greater insight into what's going on, more convenience. But we are a technology company and a software company at our core.
So with a homegrown CRM, what were sort of the pains that you went through to help build that out? I mean, obviously that's not easy. There's a lot of product there. I mean, you know what things you need when you're shelving a previous system, a legacy system, and you know what you want to build, but still a lot of pieces in between there that really make, from a marketing standpoint, you can't have a miss.
Yeah, so every company makes their own decision when it comes to build versus buy. And I wasn't part of the decision-making process at Clutter. It happened before I came, and most of the technology had been built by the time I arrived. But for us, being able to have, the power that we have in our data is really unmatched by any of the companies I've worked for before. And I've seen it with startups across the board. The things that we can do and the level of insight that we have is really strong, especially when you consider that we have a call center. And a call center and a CRM are two things that traditionally take away from the data set that you have. So if you're using a third-party call center software, they're going to have a lot of your tracking and analytics data, and then you have to make a decision about how you integrate it with your own data. For us, when you call someone, we see that profile pop up immediately, and their call history shows up right in there with their campaign data. Like, that's really powerful for a sales agent to have their activity from whatever source it might be, whether it's what campaigns they've interacted with, to what their call was, to what their SMSs have been, and have that all in one place. And then be able to also see what are the purchases that they're making with Clutter.
So you mentioned Invoca and Stripe. What made you go with those products as opposed to helping, looking at building something out for those as well?
Yeah, well, Stripe is like state of the art, and we own all of our data through Stripe, and Invoca too. I mean, everything that we put into Invoca, we get right back out in a really simple fashion.
So, I've heard you speak also about cleanliness of data, and I heard you speak at a conference about that, about how important clean data is. That's obviously an importance to me as well. But talk about where you see how clean data can make or break really what you're doing.
Yeah, so with a startup, you are making a lot of decisions over time, and hopefully you're making them quickly and you're moving quickly. And what that means is that you might have different data standards over time, or you might introduce things that create challenges for your data. So you might introduce a campaign that has a new parameter, or you might introduce A/B testing, and that might change how you think about certain things. And so ensuring that when you introduce new data, that it follows a consistent format has been really important to us, because all the time you might be switching projects, taking on a new data set, and it's really important that you can, to the greatest of our ability, to look at that data and understand what it means. And people switch teams, people switch projects. You want to be able to say, I understand what this column in this database means, and it didn't mean something in July of last year as opposed to now, November 2018.
Sure. So when you start building out, and I know you mentioned, and I know Clutter from doing some research as well, that you're in several states, but now as you start building out to new areas, talk about how you're sort of taking first party and third party data, and are you doing anything with those to help target these areas of expansion you go into? And then really also, let's add on, how are you using first and or third-party data for your targeting in general now?
We're not doing a lot of third-party data right now. We might use libraries that help us better understand data that we have. For example, we might use a user agent parsing library that helps us understand the device in the browser, or we might use a geocoding library to look up IP addresses. But for the most part, most of the information we have on our customers comes from the information that they're providing us with.
So then let's talk a little bit about attribution and talk about, in particular, the system you guys have built out. I come from also a background that had a heavy focus on closed loop attribution, understand how important that is, but talk about how that plays into your role at Clutter.
Yeah, so I think of data as kind of like a big cycle. So at the head of the cycle, you have people who provide us with information. So they click on an ad, they come through one of our landing pages, they engage with one of our promotions, and then they enter the Clutter funnel. So for us, it's usually search, you end up on a landing page, you engage with us in our call center, and then you book. At each stage, we're getting more and more information about what your interests are. And then we can use that information to understand, first of all, where our customers coming from, what are they interested in, and what are their likes or their dislikes, and what are the things that make them object to using a service like ours, and what are the things that get them excited about a service like ours. So we can take that data and then use it to make a landing page that can cater to our customers' needs. So we're really showing the value prop that appeals to them the best. Or we can use that to make better decisions about new products that we want to launch. For example, I noticed that people were clicking in through our ad to our locations page that shows kind of the different areas that we operate in because they wanted to understand whether or not Clutter serves them. And then from our locations page, a lot of them were getting lost. So just looking at that data alone allowed me to say, hey, we're missing an opportunity here to sell someone because they're bypassing our traditional landing page, going onto a page that's not intended to be do lead capture, and then we're losing them. And so overnight, we had 3 or 4 times X increase in conversion just by saying, hey, like this is how you get in touch with us.
Well, just by recognizing where customers want to go.
Exactly. And that was in part because we could look at our campaign data. We can see that people from certain campaigns were landing on these pages, and we can see that people on these landing pages were not converting as well as people who land on other pages. And we're not going to stop them from going to those pages. Instead, we should just make it a better experience.
What are the challenges you're facing in attribution today? I mean, you've got a system that you know you can control what needs to be built, but what are really the major internal and external challenges that you face as a marketer when trying to do attribution, true attribution?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and I'm thinking about it all the time. At Clutter, we talk a lot about how we have psychographics, not just demographics. So it's not just what is our gender distribution or our age distribution, but also what are the life events that people are going through. Because when you're looking for storage and when you're looking for moving, there's probably some larger life event that's going on. You might be becoming an empty nester. You might have just had a kid. You might have just gotten married. You might be changing jobs. Something's going on that's triggering your need for storage for the most part. Sometimes you might just want to clean out a closet, and that's perfectly fine too. For me, what's really missing from the customer journey is what makes you search for storage in the first place. No one's searching for storage because I just had a baby. People are just searching for storage. And so what I'd really like to understand is, why do you need storage? And understanding why you need storage can tell us a lot about how we can serve you better. And what are the other experiences that you're looking for as well? And so that, to me, I feel like is really missing from the data that we have. And then there's the more obvious stuff too. Like if you search for us on your desktop and then on your phone, how do we link those two people together and recognize them as the same person so we can recognize them as a returning visitor and give them the right information at that time?
It's not easy to attribute, an AdWord search where, just had a baby needs storage is not something you would typically see on Google. But so how do you also look at using that attribution and data? How are you using that to help target customers now?
Yeah, so we target customers, and right now it's mostly indirect. We create more pages that will suit different needs. More specifically, search is a very local experience. And so a big part of our strategy right now has been identifying local areas that people are searching for and making it very clear that we service those areas. So that when someone searches for storage near an obscure part of Los Angeles, it's very clear that even though we don't have a physical address, that we do serve customers in those areas. Google can make that a little bit difficult sometimes. They definitely have a preference for businesses that have physical addresses, even though as a service, we are equally able to serve those customers, if not more, because we come directly to their door. So Clutter right now serves half the state of New Jersey, all of New York City, Seattle, Tacoma area, the greater Chicago area, and most of SoCal, including Orange County, San Diego, and the Los Angeles County.
So you bring up a really good point that a lot of, larger brands, you probably run into the mom and pop shops out there that are doing this as well, right?
Well, it depends. The larger brands, we're different in a traditional storage provider in that we don't have physical facilities.
Right.
We still store everyone's data stuff all the same, but we come directly to their door. So where a physical location is less important. Whereas Google understands self-storage to be a place where people have go to a physical location and they're prioritizing a physical location that's near them. So proving to Google that we're relevant and equally able to serve those customers can be really challenging because it's not what Google expects when they look at our category.
So how do you go about sort of telling Google that local story?
Yeah, so before my team came in, it was kind of like, here's Clutter, enter your zip code, and we'll tell you what prices and whether we serve you. And that's it. And the reality is that Google's not going to do that. No. Google's not going to put in all of the zip codes that someone could be associated with and try to find out if we service them. So we have to be a lot more specific. So we say, hey, we're going to create a page for storage in Beverly Hills. And we're going to say, we offer storage in Beverly Hills. Now, we don't have an address, and that probably hurts us a little bit. But at least now Google knows storage Beverly Hills. Oh, well, Clutter has a page for that.
So in local listings, if I just go into the Google machine and I start looking for a storage provider like yours, do you suffer at all when it's not on like a map pack placement?
Yeah, it's a lot harder if you don't have a physical address. It's harder to see us on a map. Google doesn't necessarily show all of the on-demand providers and show their overlapping service areas. We're not there yet. Point.
So where do you want to go with your own career? And then I also want to ask, what kind of advice do you give junior product marketing managers today that are starting to look at it? Because you don't see a lot of folks that just want to go product that don't have a heavy tech background.
Yeah, product management is definitely becoming a sexier industry, so to speak. Yeah. I get a lot of inbounds from people who are interested in learning more about product management or are really excited about our junior product roles. As for my career, Clutter is such a great company, and it really is one of the best places to do product because we have such a product focus. And the engineering problems we're solving are also really interesting. So for me, I would love to see Clutter grow and for me to grow with it as well.
Well, you have that flexibility with a startup company that you wouldn't with a traditional large brand.
It's really exciting I was Clutter's first product manager, and now we have, we fill up the whole conference room with the product team and in different roles. And it's just been incredible to see that. And my own career, just being at a startup and especially a company like Clutter, I went from, as the only product manager, you're working on a little bit of everything. And then you slowly move towards, I never thought I would be a product marketing person. And yet here I am, I can talk to you about A/B testing and SEO and attribution and conversion and landing pages. And that was never something that I really thought would be part of my toolkit. But the beauty of a startup like Clutter is that there's a need and someone has to meet it. And with my background in mathematics, it seemed like a good fit. And SEO it's not just content. There's a lot of data and a lot of really fun technical challenges. My engineers get something totally different from me every week, and I think it's been really fun for them, and it's been a good mental exercise for them also.
So I saw you speak at the Call Intelligence Summit. Just for you personally, what do you enjoy about speaking in front of groups, kind of telling the Clutter story and your role talking about closed loop attribution?
Yeah, I love engaging with people. I love talking about Clutter because it's so great what we do, and I'm really excited about the future of the business. And I think we're solving really interesting technical challenges that clearly other people are as well. And we've always had a slightly non-traditional take on it. It's kind of a product manager's paradise in that way, because we get to actually build the technology and have that control over them. And not every startup has the luxury of doing that. So for me, I get really excited to share our tech stack and kind of hear from other people what they're doing and how they're solving those problems. I'm a big believer in talk to as many people as possible and that'll help you refine your own decision making.
Yeah, I think in particular, because of the local challenge you have, it is a perfect example of where you are a technology company as much as a storage company.
Very much so, yes.
And you hear that a lot from a lot of different verticals where they like to say that, but when you don't have that physical location, it can really mean a lot towards your marketing efforts. All right, Liora, are you ready for the 5 most important questions you're going to be asked today?
Oh man, bring it on.
All right. Survivor or Big Brother?
I have a friend that was on Survivor, so I'm going to go
Nice.
for Survivor.
Good choice. Twitter or Snapchat?
Twitter, easily.
You're a California girl, so avocado toast or anything from Chick-fil-A?
I feel very strongly that I need to represent my millennial peers, so I'm going to go with avocado toast.
Clutter or clean and tidy?
Depends. How are we using the word clutter? I'm going to go with clutter. I don't know.
And the most important question you're going to be asked today, biscuits or cornbread?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'll go with cornbread.
All right. So, Liora, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find out more about you, follow your thoughts? You're on the social channels somewhere since you are by nature a millennial.
Yeah, I am into the 280 character thought bite. So you can find me on Twitter at Liora_, and that's Liora with an I.
Great. Liora, thank you so much for being on A Shark's Perspective today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So there was my conversation with Liora Simozar, a senior product manager at Clutter with subject matter expertise at product marketing within a startup. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with her. First, when you look at build versus buy in your own tech stack, a lot of product marketers that I've known, like Liora, want the capabilities to build their own CRM or other products internally rather than buying off-the-shelf products like Salesforce. It's not that Salesforce or Adobe's Marketing Cloud or Microsoft Dynamics or any others aren't generally considered, gold standard products in CRMs for many marketers. It's more importantly said that your tech stack is extremely important and should be configured and tailored to fit your business needs. For many, the standard features from the name brand CRMs are fine, but for many marketers, they boldly make a choice in building out some of the pieces of their own stack. Look, if you've got the development team and the commitment to truly supporting your own best-in-class software, then do it. Just make sure that you know what you're giving up and what you're going to gain by doing so. Second, there is nothing better than having good, clean attribution. From the point of entry to the touch points to the data that you're collecting along the customer journey, you want to know what ad someone clicked and where they interacted on social, to your website, to an external post, to get to a landing page, to go to a call center, and to go to a sale. At each stage, you're gathering a lot of information on what customers like or dislike. If you can track each stage of that rather than just looking at last click, then that data can guide the way on where you need to allocate spend, where to optimize, and quite simply to help you follow your customers and how they're interacting with you. Third, the last thing you would think of from a self-storage company named Clutter is that they are a technology company. However, I love it when a company says they are a technology company also, and they really are a technology company. Look, you in any business should have a focus on using technology to leverage data in order to lower your costs, be more efficient, and provide, as she stated, a better customer experience across the board. When you're working to solve really interesting technical challenges that improve the journey for a customer, then it obviously helps you become a much better company. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you so much for spending the time with me in order to discuss one of the many components that makes up marketing today. Look, you don't have to be a product marketer, but just make sure to know how to market your product or service well. And join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.